Cut the added sugar out of your diet, and in a controlled study, in as little as 9 days, blood triglycerides dropped by 46% and fasting insulin dropped by 53% at the same body weight. That is not a cleanse or a slogan. It is a feeding study, and I will show you exactly when each change happens. We're going to follow one real timeline, from the first few hours all the way out to years. 6 stages, every one backed by a published study on the screen. And along the way I will tell you honestly which popular sugar claims are simply not true, because that matters just as much. This is educational, not medical advice. Here is the map. In the first few hours, the sugar spike and crash stops. In the first days, we deal with the thing everyone calls sugar withdrawal, and the truth there will surprise you. Around day 10, your blood chemistry shifts fast, and that is the big one. Over the following weeks and months, your sense of taste resets, your liver changes, and much further out, your heart, and even your teeth. Let me prove every single stage. But first, one honest thing about the word sugar. This video is about added sugar. That is the sugar poured into soda, sweets, sauces, and packaged food. It is not the sugar naturally inside whole fruit, vegetables, or plain milk, so nobody here is telling you to fear an apple. And here is the gap. The average American eats about 17 teaspoons of added sugar a day. The American Heart Association says to keep it under 6 teaspoons for women and 9 for men. So most of us are eating 2 to 3 times the limit. Cutting that back down is what starts the timeline. Let us begin in the first few hours. Start in the first few hours. When you eat a big fast hit of sugar, your blood glucose shoots up quickly. Your body answers with a surge of insulin, and that surge can overshoot. So about 2 to 4 hours later your blood sugar dips low again. That dip is the classic afternoon crash. The shaky, foggy, hungry again feeling. Doctors call it reactive hypoglycemia. When you take the big sugar loads out of your meals, that spike and crash flattens. Not everyone feels this the same way, so I will not promise you will suddenly feel amazing. But the mechanism is real, and for a lot of people the mid-afternoon slump eases within days. Now, the first few days is where the myths live. Now stay with me, because this is the part almost everyone gets wrong. You have probably heard that sugar is as addictive as cocaine, or even 8 times more addictive. That claim comes from rat studies where sugar was only available in short bursts, and reviews of the human evidence find little support for true sugar addiction in people. That famous number comes from no study at all, and there is no proven, day-by-day sugar withdrawal timeline in humans. Some people do report cravings, a headache, or a short fuse in the first few days, and that is genuine, but it passes, and it is not a medical detox. So do not brace for a crisis that the science does not actually show. Here is what does reliably change, and it starts around day 10, and it is dramatic. Around a week and a half in is where it gets striking. In a study published in the journal Obesity, researchers took children who had obesity and swapped their added sugar for starch. Same number of calories, same body weight, only the sugar changed. And in just 9 days, their blood triglycerides, a fat tied to heart disease, dropped by 46%. Nearly cut in half, from cutting sugar alone, with no weight loss. Why so fast? A lot of added sugar is fructose, and your liver turns extra fructose straight into fat that pours into your blood. Take the fructose away, and that fat production slows almost immediately. And triglycerides were not even the biggest number. In those same 9 days, fasting insulin fell by 53%. That matters because chronically high insulin is a warning light for type 2 diabetes, so cutting it in half is a big deal. And their bottom blood pressure number came down by nearly 5 points too. Remember, the calories and the weight were held steady, so this was the sugar itself, not slimming down. One honest note, this was a specific group of kids with a specific problem, and the sugar was swapped for starch, not simply removed. So do not expect these exact numbers yourself. But the direction is clear, and it is quick. Now let us give it a few more weeks. Give it a month or 2, and something quietly useful happens to your tongue. In a controlled trial, people who cut their sugar for a few months rated the very same foods as about 40% sweeter than before. Nothing about the food changed, only their calibration did. Your sweet sensors turn back up. So the soda that used to taste just right starts to taste like syrup, and a little bit of sweetness suddenly feels like plenty. This is exactly why those first week cravings we talked about fade instead of growing. Your palate is resetting to a lower set point, and it makes eating less sugar feel easy rather than like a fight. Now let us go deeper into the body. Push out to a couple of months, and one of the clearest changes is in your liver. Extra sugar, especially from drinks, gets stored in the liver as fat, and too much of that is called fatty liver disease. In a randomized trial published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, teenage boys with fatty liver went on a diet low in added sugar. In 8 weeks, the fat in their liver fell from about 25% down to about 17%, while the group eating their usual diet barely moved. That is a real organ getting measurably healthier just from taking the added sugar out. Again, a specific group, but a strong, well-designed study. The longer you keep going, the bigger the stakes get. Now zoom out to months and years, where the everyday habit really counts. Sugary drinks are the biggest single source of added sugar, and in a large review in the British Medical Journal, each one sugary drink a day was tied to about an 18% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. One drink, every day, moving the needle that much. And do not forget the most immediate payoff of all, your teeth. The World Health Organization is blunt about this. Keeping added sugar low directly lowers your risk of tooth decay, because every sip of sugar feeds the bacteria that make the acid that eats your enamel. Fewer sugar hits means fewer acid attacks, starting the very first day. But the biggest number is the last one. Here is the stat that ties the whole timeline together. Researchers followed thousands of American adults for years and tracked how much of their daily calories came from added sugar. Compared with people getting a modest 8% of calories from added sugar, those getting 17 to 21% had a 38% higher risk of dying from heart disease. And those getting a quarter or more of their calories from added sugar had roughly double the risk. Double. This is the sum of everything we just watched happen: the triglycerides, the insulin, the blood pressure, the liver, playing out over a lifetime. Which is exactly why pulling that number down is worth it. Let me be honest about what these studies can and cannot tell you. This channel does not do hype, so here is the honest catch. First, this is about added sugar, not the sugar in whole fruit. Second, the fast 9-day numbers came from specific study groups, so your own results will vary. Third, the long-term heart and diabetes findings are strong, repeated associations across huge populations, but association is not absolute proof. Fourth, if you lose a few pounds in the very first week, that is mostly water, not fat, so do not read too much into the scale that fast. And to be crystal clear, there is no sugar detox and no cocaine-level addiction to break. What there is a clean, consistent signal that less added sugar is better for your body. Consistency beats crash diets every time. Here's how to start. So here is how to start the timeline yourself. This week, without making it miserable. Step 1. Cut one sugary drink. Soda, sweet coffee, energy drinks, sweet tea. That is the single biggest source for most people, so it is the highest value change you can make. Step 2. Read one food label a day and just look at the line that says added sugars in grams. Awareness alone changes what you buy. Step 3. Keep the whole fruit. Cut the added sugar. You do not need to fear an orange. And step 4. Give it about 2 weeks before you judge it, because that is when your taste starts to reset and the cravings quiet down. And talk to your doctor before any big change, especially if you take medicine for blood sugar or blood pressure, since those numbers can move. Now, we kept coming back to blood sugar and insulin, the spike, the crash, the slow damage. So here's a fair question. What is the single fastest, simplest thing you can do to flatten your blood sugar, starting with your very next meal? It is not a pill, and it is not a diet. It is a short walk, and the effect on your blood sugar shows up in minutes. I followed exactly what daily walking does to your body on its own timeline, from your first walk today all the way to a full year, in this next video. It is on your screen right now. Tap it, and take care of yourself.